Hi everybody, Rad Mom here. Welcome back to the garden, my happy place to talk about scary things, which I must admit does mostly amount to feminism, but feminism is kind of a scary topic for a lot of people, right? So this is my regular Wednesday video wherein we have been exploring my personal radical feminist heresies, the parts about radical feminist practice that I personally just do not agree with at all. And I was actually stumbling a little bit in how I was going to make this into a long form video because the thesis runs thusly: Misandry is not feminism because feminism is not about men. The end. That's it. That's the whole point. And I am frustrated sometimes because, obviously in unpacking our internalized misogyny and the rage that living in this masculinized world instills in you when you live in a female body, there's a lot of man-hating goes on. That rage is natural, but it's not the end point. That's not the goal, okay? It was already there. All you are now is aware of it. And scapegoating the individual men in your personal life is not activism. In workshopping this video idea, a friend of mine asked me a really good question. So what is feminism then? I think feminism is questioning the men in your life and listening to your instincts, honing your own thoughts on the nature and topic of these interactions. They are definitely unconscious perpetuators of the shit themselves. That's definitely true. Feminism is female materialism, dare I say it. Even the man himself, even Marx and Engels, could see these issues pretty clearly 170 years ago, because they constitute the material realities of female human existence. Feminism is what Lauren Southern needed, right? And I bring her up because I found in my wanderings on this subject just a fascinating clip of Lauren Southern interviewing someone who calls herself Brave the World from 5 years ago. And if you don't know who Lauren Southern is, don't worry, we're going to go into that. She is the fallen poster child of the Red Pill movement, essentially, who went hardcore into the trad life, trad wife thing and lived to regret it. And she's had some very interesting things to say in the present. But first we're going to take a look at this clip from 2019 because they do a very good job of raising the points where feminism has failed to materially address women's needs. But that's only half the story, right?
First of all, no actual woman wants to be in charge over the entirety of their relationship, okay?
I don't know what she means by actual woman. I didn't look into her politics all that deeply. She's sort of a side character in my little play here. I've definitely met women who prefer to wear the pants in their relationship, so to speak.
And when they are in charge, they cheat on the man, they leave the man, they disrespect the man.
That's funny, because that sounds exactly like how men behave when they're in charge, doesn't it? It's almost like perhaps a power imbalance in marriage is bad.
I'm a woman with a very strong character, a very strong personality. In Russia, we have this term called podkabluchnik.
Now that's interesting. These two talk about having grown up in Canada, but she does have this accent, right? And apparently she is Russian. So that's obviously going to inform her perspective just a little bit.
It means a man who lives under the heel of his woman. And like, if I dated some random guy, he would be a podkabluchnik, because that's how I am. I needed a guy who knew how to keep me in my lane. And I don't mean that as an oppressive thing. I mean that as a, Julia, slow down. I have my thing and you have your thing. And we're a partnership.
However, it sounds like she's describing being a type A personality. And as a type A personality, you tend to be overbearing. And so you need somebody who is going to gently and actively push against that if you hope to have a balanced marriage. That's not sex specific.
But you can't talk to me like this, or I'm not going to always listen to you on these matters. And if I would suggest to most women to find a man who obviously respects you and your opinions and you as a person, but who also has his lane and knows when you're stepping out of your own.
If you're naturally a more outwardly focused, overbearing type A personality, I wager some women need somebody who's going to try and coax them out of their shell and encourage them to grow as a human being. Because there is no one-size-fits-all to relationships.
Because a household is about balance. You can't have someone, it's like a workplace. Do you want someone hovering over your desk saying, oh, you should be doing that instead? No, it's my job, stick to your job. So that creates a lot of harmony in the household.
And that goes both ways, doesn't it?
When you have those default roles to go back to.
Okay, I missed this on the first go round. She calls this default roles. The default roles are person who bears the child and person who does not. That's the only default thing at play here. That's the material reality we're talking about. You know, everything beyond that, unfortunately, is subject to negotiation. Yeah, it is.
And you work with your biology. Like, men and women are different and they have strengths and weaknesses. So work with your biology, not against it because of your ego. Your ego is not your friend in a relationship.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you say we need to work within our biology. Like, even in New Zealand, they did a study showing that if a man does the more masculine chores, like taking out the garbage, and a woman does the more feminine chores, like making dinner and doing the laundry, they have a more harmonious sex life.
New Zealand, that's funny. Is it my imagination, or is this just a little bit of foreshadowing? Because not too long after she did this interview, Lauren married a guy and moved to Australia with him, where, you know, he proceeded to do stuff like lock her outside of the house in the rain. So I wonder exactly what it was about his masculine brain that made him decide that was a good idea. I don't really know what to make of that. What the fuck exactly is it about taking out the garbage that makes that a masculine activity? What the fuck exactly is it about cooking dinner that makes that a feminine activity? Everybody makes trash, and everybody needs to eat. See, this is gobbledygook. And it's so interesting to me because Julia on the left here in the white has more life experience. She has a kid and a husband. As opposed to Lauren here, for her, at this point in her life, this was all still theoretical.
So this works with statistics. This works with your brain. And if we don't just deny the reality of our psychological differences, we can use it to our advantage to have happier relationships.
And I think it shows.
Even Marxism talks about this. I know people hate Marx, but that doesn't mean he didn't have some interesting anecdotes.
I sort of like that, referring to Marxist philosophy as anecdotes. I have no more thoughts on that, but that's not the right word, right? But I like it.
He said, people, why do you want to liberate women to have to be in just as much slavery as men? Men don't want to go work 8 hours a day and be away from their children.
Capitalist patriarchy's done a really good job of convincing them that they do, hasn't it? To the point where they feel like failures if they don't, right? And now we're getting in on the game. Hooray!
Ironically, the Soviet Union was the first to really equalize the sexes. They sent women to the front lines. Women were fighter pilots. Abortion was hugely accepted and pushed as part of women's equality in the country. Interesting.
That is interesting, especially since it was 100 years ago. By the 1940s and 50s, all of that had been rolled back and women had been sent back into the kitchen. For exactly the reason that Lauren herself is going to say just in just a minute. I've actually completely reversed the order of these clips, though. So, like, it's almost as if these women were talking backwards. It's very strange.
I really think modern feminism has completely betrayed women because, so you have to have a job now. So you have to like do dual income. That's also part of the life we live in the economy of our times. But yeah, you got to go get a job and you got to have the kids and you got to clean the house and you got to cook the food. Where's our feminism? I'm not liberated. I'm restrained by all the extra things I'm expected to do now. Like, I don't get it. I don't get what you guys want.
Thank you, Julia. That's a very articulately made point, spoken from obvious experience. Feminism has failed to materially address the needs of women. Pity that these two both seem to love feeling clever. They love that gotcha so much that they also fail to actually address these things. As if that's just how it's meant to be, and feminism's refusal to acknowledge these realities means they do not need to be addressed. Which, as Lauren learned the hard way, is very much not the case.
Yeah, there are some theories that even say the government wanted to just double the tax base, so they told women, you know, it would be great working in a factory.
That's exactly what the Soviet government did in the 1920s. I wrote a whole blog post about it. I'll link it down in the description. Because that was feminism 100 years ago. Yeah. In the Soviet Union. Yeah, it was. Which, is one of the reasons that I don't think, generally speaking, that Marxism and feminism necessarily go together. The fact that they can both observe the same material facts doesn't necessarily mean that feminism needs to be Marxist. Okay? They don't get to claim those facts and the analysis of them. No. The Soviet government used feminism for its own economic gain, and then by 20 years later, the next generation of women were back in the fucking kitchen. Because for some reason, it's almost as if giving up our sense of our own uniqueness and our own womanhood and our own whatever the fuck that is amounts to us giving up our own power. It's funny how that works. Which is why this concept that Monique Wittig put, this idea of that materialist analysis destroys women as a natural group, boggles my fucking mind. If it does that, it's wrong.
Like, that's sometimes the idea of liberation and having more freedom doesn't necessarily mean it's fun. Even Marxism talks about this. I know people hate Marx.
Liberation isn't necessarily fun. I mean, in the same way that adulthood isn't necessarily fun, right? Oh my goodness. But we could sit here and bitch about how those two ladies were so far off the track 5 years ago, all night, right? However, as I say, Lauren had her mea culpa after an entire year. It took 1 year of living under those conditions with a man who decided that he was the boss of everything that she did and went fucking power mad, apparently, to decide that maybe she'd made a little bit of a mistake. This article that I'm about to quote from is from Unheard, and it's written by Mary Harrington, and it's very good, and I will link it down below as well, and I encourage everybody to go and read the full article. But she does a very good job of illustrating my point. Feminism is female materialism. It is the philosophy of addressing our specific material needs. More than anything, though, what shattered the listicle mindset, which is that simplified idea that a lot of us get through online life, of the red pill or trans ideology, like any of that stuff that's just so like bullet points, okay, that you're supposed to just like check off like check boxes and have that would be your ideal lifestyle. That's just not realistic. And that's what that's referring to. What shattered this mindset was simply realizing how much nicer life could be when you live the life that's in front of you, rather than trying to follow rigid precepts. Despite not being the right-wing ideal of aristocracy and everyone going to mass, Lauren realized she was infinitely happier out in the middle of the woods among her working-class neighbors than she ever had been in her marriage. Every single thing I was experiencing in my real realm, not online realm, was the complete opposite of what I was being told. It's almost as if this whole society is kind of set up inversely for what women actually need. Mary goes on to say in her article that she doubts online gender arguments will abate anytime soon. The tussle between men and women is a culture war as old as humanity itself. Men and women always need to find a way to live together, which means negotiating those ways our material interests and physical capacities align or exist in tension. With the wider world in flux, it's hardly surprising to find ourselves here again. I don't think that's why. Feminism seems to have like amnesia, right? And as I've said before, I think the confusion between theory and practice is a big part of why. But that was last week's video. The challenge is finding solutions that are grounded in reality rather than abstract purist ideologies. And this is what I am saying. That is what feminism needs. Feminism needs to be female-centric materialism. And I love her take on this, but the internet's first generation of natives may be the ones who bring us back down to earth. It's so hopeful. Even the erstwhile queen bee of the extremely online radical right, that being Lauren Southern, is now a convert to living in reality. I like to think of the material world as the waterhole that we all have to come back to drink from. No matter what wanderings we may undertake out in the mental bush, you always have to go to the bathroom. right? You always have to stop to eat. You always need to sleep, etc., etc. So perhaps there's hope that the rest of us, and our politics, will also find our way back there in the end. That is the core of the ongoing mission of this channel and just about everything I do in my life anymore, is to try and create a feminism that is rooted in the real world, because we desperately need one. Some of the comments underneath this interview that I clipped from 5 years ago are so fascinating. My point is the way feminists speak of men is disgusting, and the way red pill men speak of women is from the same camp. Ladies, if we're being compared with any seriousness to the red pill, misandry isn't feminism. Just like women bashing is not legitimate masculine activism. As far as activism goes, it amounts to scapegoating. It is the embodiment of allowing your personal vendettas and your personal feelings to cloud your judgment. And it's the kind of ego stroking that has allowed feminism to drift and drift and drift from what to me is obviously what it should be doing. Feminism has talked otherwise reasonable women that is a high into believing, I suppose, that it is a higher goal to serve some soulless, uncaring corporation than serving your family, the people who love you. And yeah, basically. And the idea that that might be some, top-down conspiracy theory to pump up the economy is only ridiculous if you don't know Soviet history. So, thanks, Julia, for bringing that up. That was beautiful. But so what the fuck kind of feminism is this that makes women turn their backs on their relationships? I'm not even talking about the nuclear family. It's a very individualistic, it's a very atomized. That's liberal feminism, right? That's choosy choice feminism. And I'm going to say that it doesn't serve the needs of women at all, because it just encourages you to ignore these material realities. So to my mind, that would make that not feminism. I hope this has made some sense. I've tried to flesh out this idea a little bit. Man-hating isn't feminism because we have so many other things to do. It's not about you, boys. Deal with it. Thank you so much for joining me out here in the garden today. I have been Mad Mom. Join me at the top of the hour for the live stream where we can do this a little bit more, and I will see you next time. Thanks so much for joining me. Okay, thanks. Bye.